Hi, and welcome to Write with Alex. So, recently I've been struggling with a lack of energy, and for anything really, but especially for writing. And I thought, why not make a video with some strategies for what you can do when you don't have the energy to write, but you really want to or need to write. And of course, also most importantly, to figure out, do you really need to write, or making sure that you're meeting yourself where you are and not putting unrealistic expectations of yourself. So let's get into it. So if you are really tired but you feel that you need to write, I think it's important to ask yourself the question, do I have to write? And maybe the answer is yes, and maybe it's no. And maybe you have a deadline that you have to meet, or you're doing a writing challenge and you really want to, stay on track with the challenge. Or maybe you know that writing will just make you feel better. Then I will give you some strategies for kind of how to get into writing, even though the step to get into it feels really high. But if none of these three apply to you, and you don't find a different reason that is really important to write, I think you should just take a break. Don't beat yourself up about not having the energy to write right now. So we go through seasons of everything in our lives, I think, but especially with hobbies, like you will have a period where you have a lot of time and energy to write, and you will have periods where you don't have that energy. And allow yourself to be in the period you are right now. So I'm not beating myself up about not writing right now, because I know that I need to put my limited energy into other things. But in the future, I will come into a season where I have a lot of energy, and then I will write a lot. And it's important to be kind to yourself. And I think this video and this topic kind of sits on the line of so I talk a lot about making writing fun. I think that's really important, and I want writing to be enjoyable. And writing when you don't have the energy for writing is really, it can quickly go over the line of being enjoyable. And that's why I think you have to be really mindful about how you do this and your reasons for writing and not writing. So that you take care of yourself and, do the best you can do with the circumstances that you have. So if you have decided that, yes, I do want or need to write right now, here are some things that you can do that kind of helps you get into writing and make the writing maybe a bit easier. So the first thing that is good to do is to lower your expectations. So maybe you don't need to expect yourself to write, the perfect scene or the smartest dialogue, or to expect the product that you write today to be, the best thing you've ever written. You can do that other days when you have energy. That will be easier to go there straight away. But when you write, you can edit it later. So just, make the goals more like I'm going to sit down to write for 5 minutes, rather than I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write this whole scene, I'm going to write 5,000 words, and I'm going to do this and this and this. Start lower. Like maybe if you're lucky, you get energy from starting writing, or you end up in a scene that you really like, and then you can just keep going, and maybe you do end up writing 5,000 words, but it will be a lot easier to start if you put the expectations much lower. And the second thing you can do is write something that is fun and easy. And I mean, I always I always think you should lead with this, but I think it's especially important when you're tired and you feel like you feel some resistance to starting to write. So this can, if you have a book that you're working on, maybe you can, skip ahead to a scene that you know will be easier or more fun to write. Or if you don't really have a book project, you're just writing things, then try to write with the kind of characters, the kind of settings, or maybe the kind of prompts that you think are more fun than other things. These are kind of the mentality going into writing. And then another thing that is really helpful is to just write for a shorter amount of time. So you can say, I will write for 5 minutes, or I will write for 50 minutes, and that's it. And if you start writing for 5 minutes and it goes really well, of course you can keep going. But if you say, I will write for 5 minutes, allow yourself to stop after 5 minutes if it doesn't work. Because then otherwise you will just trick your brain into thinking, yeah, I know it's 5 minutes, but actually I want to write for, I don't know, half an hour. Just allow yourself to try 5 minutes, let it go, come back the next day, do 5 minutes again. Showing up for yourself and just writing for a really short amount of time, I think makes a bigger difference than forcing yourself to write through, I don't know, half an hour writing when it doesn't feel good, when it just doesn't work. So like, I think it's good to give yourself the opportunity to write and see like, can I make this work? But if it doesn't, come back a different time and try again. Another thing when you do sit down to write is to start where you are. And this is something that I always do in my write-ins here on the channel, and well, anytime I do a write-in, because I think it's such a good way to get started and not get stuck on what you want to write for the book. So starting where you are can look like writing a journal entry before you start a creative writing, or writing a flow writing, like just writing down what you're thinking just on the page. And you can do this for like 2 or 3 minutes just to get started writing, because it's so much easier to write what you're feeling right now than to think like, oh, this scene, this character, and you have to get into all of it, and maybe if you're not feeling it, it's much more difficult. And I also think that if you're tired, or maybe there's something else going on in your life that is taking that energy, then starting writing a bit about it will also help you kind of settle down a bit, and it will make it easier to write after that. The last thing I wanted to say about how to approach this with your lack of energy, or motivation, or whatever it is that you're struggling with right now, is to listen to yourself. So don't push it if it doesn't feel good. Be aware of where you're at, how your energy feels, your headspace. Mental health is so important, and I think this is one of the things that people kind of trick themselves with, of pressuring yourself to do something and it doesn't work, it doesn't go well, you don't like it, and you keep going, and you kind of end in this kind of negative loop of just making things worse, because you're also mad at yourself because you're not doing it and you're not writing like you should. So like take a breath, listen to what you need. Maybe you need to rest instead, or you need to do something else, and that's okay. And the most important thing is to take care of yourself. Yeah, so that was all for today. I hope that some of these tips will be helpful to you, and I hope that you will get through this period that you're in, that it is really tiring for you, and that the struggling with writing, it's not a fun place to be, but you will get to a different place in the future. It doesn't matter. It can take a while. The periods can be, you can have a really long season of not writing or a really short one, but you will get to a different point in the future. But if you're here now and you want or need to write, I hope that you can use one of these, and maybe you will get into it a bit easier. So thank you for joining me. Take care and happy writing.